Steve, your friendly neighborhood lawn gnome. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite segment over here on my channel, Out of the Vault. If you are new, let me just say welcome. It is a pleasure to have you. And for all of you returning, I'm hoping that you are excited for another dose of Disney magic, whether we talk about Disney canon classics, Disney Pixar films, and yes, even though they are not included with Disney anymore, Studio Ghibli, because John Lasseter is the reason why Studio Ghibli is what it is right now in Western entertainment. So, I know it's been a while, and I'm sure that all of you are very excited for my review of Lightyear, but unfortunately, you are going to have to wait a little while because of the fact that I am now a parent of a 1-month-old. I do not have the time or the ability to get to a movie theater, and more importantly, it may not feel like it, but yes, we still are very much in the middle of a COVID pandemic, and until my daughter at least gets her vaccinations outside of COVID, I want to stay away from as many people as possible and just people who I know are safe and healthy while my daughter is waiting to get her first few shots. But anyway, we are going to dive into the world of Studio Ghibli. I know it's been a while. However, it's a very interesting film that we're going to be talking about today because technically, while many have officially called this the very first Studio Ghibli film directed by Hayao Miyazaki, it is in fact originally not part of the Studio Ghibli library. The truth of the matter is, the very first Studio Ghibli film is Castle in the Sky, but because of the fact that Hayao Miyazaki and Isao Takahata are famed producers and directors of Studio Ghibli, in time, the movie from 1984, Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, is a film that is now incorporated in the Studio Ghibli chronology, and it is now pretty much known as the very first Studio Ghibli film. This movie, when it was brought to the United States thanks to the Walt Disney Company, was given a voice cast including Alison Lohman, Patrick Stewart, and Uma Thurman. I'm a big Patrick Stewart fan, so knowing that he was going to be a part of the English voice cast of this film, I was all the more excited. And also, this was a time back in the early 2000s when a friend of mine who roomed with me, the notorious Mr. Beagle, gave me the opportunity to watch all of the current available Studio Ghibli films, even some that were not even introduced to the United States yet. I saw them with their original Japanese dialogue. So, of course, we went in chronological order, and Nausicaä was the very first film that I saw. The movie is the story of a far-off world where the human race has almost gone extinct due to the fact that there was a war called the 7 Days of Fire, where out of the damage and destruction, a toxic jungle that is home to these mutant insects has started to overtake whatever remains of the planet. And the problem is the humans cannot survive, even though some of these pieces of the toxic jungle are absolutely beautiful. The human race is trying everything they can to prevent themselves from going extinct. But there is this one little kingdom that has a princess named Nausicaä. She has the ability to communicate with these insects, and she also belongs to a kingdom that embraces the beauty of the elements as well as wants to remain in peace with the toxic jungle, and they believe that we can, as insects and humans, live in peace in our own separate environments. But then all of a sudden, the Valley of the Wind is officially brought into an upheaval because of neighboring kingdoms that have very different intentions in mind, and one of them wants to actually merge all of the last of the human kingdoms for the purposes of burning the toxic jungle to the ground, eliminating the insects, and Nausicaä believes that that is not the way. So I will definitely say right off the bat that this movie is without a doubt one of the most beautiful and most innovative films to look at. It is absolutely gorgeous. It is based on the 1982 graphic novel that Hayao Miyazaki actually wrote, so the fact that he directed this film was fantastic, and it is just so unique, so innovative. Some of the imagery is just so gorgeous and beautiful, it is definitely something that you can get very entranced with while you're watching. The characters definitely have good chemistry with one another. Also, the English voice cast does work very well together. But I will say, as a whole, when I first saw this movie, even though it is beautiful, it is not a film that I personally enjoy, and I think it's just because of the fact that it sort of drags a little bit, and I personally don't really connect with the characters. Sometimes I find them to be a little bland. And once again, there's other very famous names that are brought to do the English voice cast, including the great Mark Hamill and even Shia LaBeouf. But for what it is, the fact that the elements like the dialogue and the plot itself just don't seem to grab me as it does for most people. Everything else that is part of this movie is somewhat lost. Also, it is a very unique film for me personally because most of the time there really isn't any music. And for me, as a music fan and an animation fan, those two specific things do go hand in hand. But one of the few things that I have definitely known with most Studio Ghibli films is that there really is a lot more dialogue most of the time when there is music. And when there is music that is actually played in this film, it's not some of the best that I've ever heard. And I also think that that sort of kind of takes it away from me. But at the end of the film, you know, it's a satisfying film. It's not the worst that I've ever seen, that's for sure. But it's definitely not my personal favorite. It's actually one of the few Studio Ghibli films that I do not own on DVD, and even after seeing it after all this time, I still do not intend on purchasing it on DVD. But once again, if you are a fan, there's a very good chance that you will very much enjoy it, because most people really do. I personally am somewhere in the middle, because it's not horrible. I will definitely state that. It's why, now that I can finally say that I've watched it after the longest of times, amongst all the other Studio Ghibli films, I will give it a 2.5 stars out of 4. So thank you very much for watching, everybody. Please leave your comments in the box below, and let's discuss Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, and I will see you in the next one. If you enjoyed the video you just watched, feel free to leave a comment. Also, feel free to subscribe if you want to be up to date with our latest videos. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you in the next one. Actions speak louder than words.